Okay, students, this time we are going to study the present simple. Remember that in the last video we saw the present continuous or present progressive. This time we are going to study the present simple. Okay, study this example situation. It says, Alex is a bus driver, but now he's in bed asleep. He's not driving a bus, he is asleep. Okay, remember that he is not driving a bus is in what tense? It is in present continuous, okay? But we are going to see this example. But he drives a bus. He is a bus driver. Okay, that means, students, that we use the present simple to refer to situations or actions that we regularly do, okay? For example, I can say, I usually go to bed at 8 o'clock. Okay, that is a habit that I have. So in that case, we must use the present simple. Okay, it says drives, works, does, etc. is the present simple. We are going to distinguish, or I'm going to explain that later in a chart. Because we have some rules that we need to follow when we use the present simple. It depends on what subject we are using, okay, at the moment of speaking. If I use I, if I use we, you, they, then the verb in present simple does not change, okay? The verb does not change. But if we use he, she, it, then the verb must be modified because there are certain rules that we need to follow, as I told you, and I'm going to explain that later, okay? We are going to see some other examples, and okay, here we have, it says, we use the present simple to talk about things in general, okay? We use it to say that something happens all the time or repeatedly, or that something is true in general. Examples, here we have. Nurses look after patients in hospitals, okay? That is a general truth, okay? Nurses look after patients in hospitals. I usually go away at weekends. I usually go away at weekends. That means that it is an activity that I always do, okay, at weekends. I usually go away at weekends. The earth goes round the sun. The earth goes round the sun. It is a truth, right? The earth goes round the sun. It will never change. Okay, the cafe opens at 7:30 in the morning. The cafe opens at 7:30 in the morning. It means that the cafe always opens at that time. Okay, that's why we use the present simple. We say, I work, but he works. That's what I'm going to explain now, the different rules that we need to apply when using the pronouns he, she, or it, okay? I work, it doesn't change, the verb does not change. But if I use the pronoun he, then the verb needs an extra, it needs an S, okay? Works, he works. But if you use the pronoun you, then the verb remains the same. You go, but it goes. They teach, the verb remains the same. Teach, they teach. But my sister teaches. My sister teaches. Okay, we need to add an E and an S, okay? I have, but he has. He has. Okay, let's see the different rules. Okay. The rule number 1 says add S for most verbs. Okay? If you are using the pronouns he, she, or it, then you need to add an S to the verb. Alright? Number 2, add ES for words that end in CH, S, SH, X, or Z. Okay, remember, these rules need to be applied if you are using the pronouns he, she, or it. Remember that, because you cannot apply these rules if you are using the pronouns I, they, we, or you. Okay? Never apply these rules. But if you are using he, she, or it, then you need to apply, or you must apply these rules. Okay, number 2. Okay, watch. Watches. She watches TV at night. He watches TV programs in the morning. Okay, the verb pass. Passes. Okay, passes. Relax. Relaxes. Why? Because the verb ends in an X, and the rule says add ES for words that end in CH, S, SH, X, or Z. Now look at this. Rush, rush, rushes. Okay? Rush, rushes. Number 3. Look at the rule number 3. If the verb ends in consonant plus Y, change the Y to I and add ES. Okay? Study. You need to omit the Y and put the IES. Study, studies. My sister studies mathematics in the afternoon. Okay? My brother Juan studies geometry at school. Okay? If the verb ends in a vowel plus Y, don't change the Y. It remains the same. Okay, you need to compare these two verbs. In this case, you have Y, but before that Y you have a consonant. Right? You have a consonant here. So you need to take out the Y and change it for IES. Study, studies. But in this case, you have a vowel before the Y. You have a vowel here, A, okay? Play. So in that case, when you have this type of verbs, you only need to add an S. Play, plays. Okay, Robert plays soccer with his friends. Susan plays video games with her sister. Okay, you need to be careful with these two rules, okay, with these types of verbs. Now, rule number 4, irregular forms. Okay, if you have a verb that ends in O, like in this one, do, then you need to add an E and an S. Do, does. Okay? Do, does. For example, you can say, my brother Roberto does his assignment in the morning. Another example with the verb go. Okay, go. You can say Peter usually goes to the park with his father. Peter usually goes to the park with his father. You see that you need to add an E and an S. Why? Because you are using the subject Peter, and Peter is the same as he. Okay, he. And you also have the verb be, and the conjugation am, is, are, depending on what subject or what pronoun you are using. Okay, I am, she is, he is, they are, we are, you are. With the verb have, you need to change it for has. Okay, if you are using he, she, or it, you need to use has. Alright? Okay, students, if you have any question, please write it on the comment box, okay? Now I'm going to explain the use of questions and how to make negative sentences, how to make questions in the present simple, okay? Okay, if you are going to make a question in the present simple, you need to use the auxiliaries do and does, okay? Do and does. Okay, if you are using I, we, you, they, you need to use do. But if you are using he, she, or it, you need to use does. Do we work? Do you work? Do they work? Do they work in Panama City? But if you are using the pronouns he, she, or it, you need to use does. Does he drive? Does she drive a car? Okay, remember that to make questions in present simple, you need to use the auxiliaries do and does, okay? Always. But if you want to make sentences, if you want to make negative sentences, remember you need to use don't and doesn't. Don't for I, we, you, they, and doesn't, which is the same as does not. Okay, does not is the same as doesn't, but doesn't is a contraction. Don't is a contraction of do not. Okay, here, he, she, it doesn't drive. He doesn't drive a car. She doesn't do her assignment. You don't work in Chitre. We don't work in the afternoon. Okay, remember that. These two things are very, very important. To make questions, you need the auxiliaries do and does, depending on the subject. And to make negative sentences, you need to use don't and doesn't. Here we have some examples. I come from Canada. Where do you come from? Where do you come from? In negative, I don't go away very often. I don't go away very often. What does this word mean? What does this word mean? You can see here that in this question you are using the word what. What, okay? What does this word mean? And not what means this word. This is incorrect, okay? Although some people use it this way, it is incorrect. But in this class, in this lesson, in this unit, you are learning correct grammar, okay? Rice, look at the other example. Rice doesn't grow in cold climates. Rice doesn't, which is the same as does not. Rice does not grow in cold climates. Rice doesn't grow in cold climates. In the following examples, it says do is also the main verb. So you need to be careful because sometimes do is an auxiliary, as in this case, and sometimes do is also the main verb. Okay? Do you do, doesn't do, etc. Okay, what do you do? What do you do? Answer, I work in a shop. What do you do? I work in a shop. Or you can say, I am a doctor. I am a teacher. I am a professor. Okay? He's always so lazy. He doesn't do anything to help. Okay? In these two examples, in this question and in this sentence here, the word do or the verb do is used as the main verb. He's always so lazy. He doesn't do anything to help. Now look at these sentences. This practice is for you. Okay, it says complete with do or does. Okay, where she go in the mornings? Remember what I explained. Where? What is the correct answer? Yes, it's does. Where does she go in the mornings? Okay, there is an activity, or there is a place, right? Because when you use where, you are asking for a location, you are asking for a place. Where does she go in the mornings? The answer could be she goes to the park or she goes to school. Next, what you have on the table? What is the correct answer? Do or does? Exactly, is do. Why do? Because you are using the pronoun you. Remember that when you use you, they, I, we need to use the auxiliary do. What do you have? What do you have on the table? Next, where they live. If you are using here they, what is the correct auxiliary? Exactly, yes, it's do. Where do they live? Where do they live? Answer, they live in an apartment. They live in an apartment. Okay, now you can do these ones, okay? Do this, this, and this. You can write them down. You can write the answer in the comment box. Okay, let's continue. It says, we use the present simple to say how often we do things. Yes, okay? How often we do things. Okay, when we use the present simple, we usually use adverbs of frequency or frequency adverbs. Okay, for example, never, usually, sometimes, rarely. Okay, there are many. Okay, I get up at 8 o'clock every morning. You can say, I usually get up at 8 o'clock every morning. Okay, students, I'm going to explain that. I'm going to explain the use of frequency adverbs in our next video. Okay, so don't worry. How often do you go to the dentist? How often? How often do you go to the dentist? You can answer, well, I go usually, or I usually go on Saturdays, or I usually go to the dentist once in a month. Okay, once in a month. Julie doesn't drink tea very often. Julie doesn't drink tea very often. This is in negative. Remember, negative, doesn't. Robert usually goes away 2 or 3 times a year. Robert usually goes away 2 or 3 times a year. E. Okay, this section, it says, I promise, I apologize. Sometimes we do things by saying something. For example, when you promise to do something, you can say, I promise I won't be late. When you suggest something, you can say, I suggest. Okay? I promised I won't be late. Not I'm promising. Okay? What do you suggest I do? What do you suggest I do? I suggest that you study every day, for example. In the same way, we say, I apologize, I advise, I insist, I agree, I refuse. You can see that these sentences are in simple or in present simple. All right? Okay, students, we have finished this video. If you have any question, you can ask them. Okay? Now it's time for the exercises. Please develop the different exercises. Remember that if you have any question, please let me know and I'll be there to help you. See you in the next video.